Talk that shit now, shit now.
Greetings, everyone. You are now tuned in live to Super Heru Radio. I am your host, Aseer the Duke of Tears, along with my co-host, Selena the Empress of 10,000 Years, in spirit, my brother, Saga Assad, all of the human families of the planet Earth, all of the Super Heru Radio listeners that have been following us for the past almost 7 years now. We want to say love and light to all of you, respect to anyone who may have lost anyone within the last time we spoke. Inshallah, everybody is hearing everything as clear as can be. And we want to wish a happy memorial to Michael, a.k.a. Martin Luther King. I think today was the day he was assassinated or the day he was born. I don't ever remember. Not to be disrespectful to those people who follow him and, look at him as a role model, but me personally, he wasn't somebody that was major. He was somebody that was propped up to me to be something, and as I got older, like all things, you start to realize that everything that glitters is not gold. However, he inspired many people all over the world, the same way Gandhi did, and other people who, for lack of a better word, straddled the fence between true liberation and revolution and social acceptance and amalgamation. So in that, though, he's still revered, and in that we want to give respect to any Asiatic man, whether underclad or not, that actually contributed something to the world. So we want to access and be in a situation where we can look at the works but not get caught up in deifying the individual of whom works we do the knowledge to. Some people would like to purport that to the Prophet Noble Joe Ali, but I never read anything where he told people that they need to worship him as God or anything like that. Everything that I read coming from him in terms of what was given to me to come from him was basically talking about how everything that we have is bestowed from the great God Allah. Therefore, in understanding that, what Allah means to me as a Muslim or more is very different than what it may mean to a Muslim, someone who is in the religious aspect of the practice. The practice, in terms of difference to me, would be a Muslim is one who worships Allah, where the worship of Allah is then bestowed to them by degree to whatever imam or spiritual leader that they have put themselves under the jurisdiction of to receive the word of Allah through another man. Whereas a Muslim understands that the will of Allah is written in the heart of man, and therefore, as the Surah says, one learned man is worth more than 1,000 worshippers. Is just to say that there's a difference in, how people perceive what it is they put themselves under or into. Therefore, speaking of which, one of the things that we're striving to do with Super Heru Radio is move it into a higher octave or higher venue that is not wrought with all of the extraneous situations that have been happening in terms of people not being able to listen into the show and download archives and stuff like that. All of that is kind of whack, but we're striving to really get remedy with that. But in the process, uplift the whole situation into a higher octave and even into another venue. So we're going to be launching Super Heru Radio 7.0 via our YouTube channel. That way people have a direct also conduit that can subscribe. Our YouTube channel is Aseer the Duke of Tears. And we're going to be launching Super Heru Radio 7.0 on that. We hope to get as many subscribers as possible. I don't think so. So we're definitely going to strive to bring more content and even a better way of illustrating what it is we've been building on since we started this journey with the people in terms of setting out to clarify. One of the things that was brought to my attention was that sometimes in bringing clarity to people or to us creates a situation where it actually confuses and makes more people confusing, meaning that when you strive to bring clarity to certain situations, it can actually bring the YouTube channel, just for the people to know, is under Aseer Cordoba, Cordoba. So, yeah, we're going to post about that as well. But to get back to what I was saying, sometimes in bringing clarity to situations, you actually can create more confusion, and the road to hell is paved with the best intentions. Therefore, what I'm learning is understanding what should be given and what shouldn't. Yet, everything that I have discerned to give has been based on everything that I was given sanction to do. Therefore, there's certain things, believe it or not, that we can't say on YouTube for as much as we have, just due to the fact that there's so many people striving to get things that the modicum of human exchange now is to see things how you want them. And when people's mind is made up about certain things, they don't really come outside of seeing yours or anybody else's perspective on it. Because as much as people think that they're about change, change usually happens based on some sort of dissatisfaction. So in looking at dissatisfaction throughout history, that has usually been wrought by misunderstanding. And misunderstandings usually manifest from how the intent of what is given is translated. So if beauty is in the eye of the beholder, then it's the same thing with how something is taken once it's given out. So you can say something one way, but a person may take it a different way based on whatever inflection or whatever may come from that, or based on their imperial way of dealing with things, which then creates a hyper situation where it leads to almost a perpetual misunderstanding. And so a lot of what happens is just a redux of that. So on this so-called Martin Luther King Day, what I was thinking was that due to the fact that we're at a stage in our people's development where they're not really together in the manner that the man may have wanted them to be, and because they're not really in a position where they can't, or they feel that they can't move forward, this stagnation in our people has created a ripple effect that is hitting all of us in different ways. And the best of us in terms of communication, what I'm learning, can always do better, and there's no other way to really sometimes say how you feel than just to say how you feel. And we, let's say black men, those of us that have been raised by a single woman, have been taught to, we were the generation where they tried the whole, be open to your feeling shit. You know what I mean? We were the whole generation of, you have to express yourself because men are too boorish or too whatever. But the people who nurtured us to do that is women who was hurt by men who felt that they, for whatever reason, couldn't work it out with whatever woman they was with. So in that essence, the last generation that of people who are really together in terms of husband, wife, shit like that, was like our grandparents' generation. or our great-grandparents' generation. Because by the time it got to our parents, the 70s babies and all of that was pretty much dead. Everybody was out for self. And that created the whole greed generation through the 80s of us being fueled by the need to get money through the whole crack thing and all the other stuff they flipped on us. Came a perpetual distortion in terms of how we were supposed to work together. And unfortunately, I don't think that, and I'm starting to think that there's no other way that our people feel that they can communicate with each other. You know, it seems like anybody could say anything about anybody now. You know what I'm saying? Like, the people with the less respect is the people with the most to say now. You know what I mean? And so because everybody feels that they right in every argument or every instance that they have, everyone's guilty of the same shit. But what's happening, at least what I'm starting to see happen, is that the world is starting to really wake up to the fact that it is not going to get any better unless drastic changes happen. And like I said, drastic changes are based on dissatisfaction. But we live in a world now where you got these Russian, like I was watching this Russian socialite, and she's sitting on a chair that's made to look, a mannequin chair that's made to look like a black woman on her back with her legs up in the air to support the back of the chair. And she's just there in the thing like it's no problem. The dehumanization, the transhumanization of society itself has become a perpetual monster that is devouring people's perception of themselves. And we were never trained to deal with the things that happen in our childhood, because everything from, especially if you grew up in a black household, you're supposed to just deal with shit. And so it gets to a point where people don't want to engage in real dialogue. Therefore, dialogue has to take a different form, and this is where debates and those other type of shit starts coming in, because nobody wants to really resolve nothing. There's no real resolution to nothing. There is no direct way to make it right. The only way you could do it is to do what you feel is right. But what you feel is right is designated on what you were brought up to believe right and wrong is. But right and wrong are just two opposing opposites of the same thing. They're the hot and cold water running out the same faucet. They're just polarities based upon what it is you do. So when we speak of the greater human condition on an astrological or hyperphysical level, we're really also talking about the earthly perception of these things. You think an omnipresent, omniscient entity that is within itself the universe that we call God, that we are all made up of the same elements that created it, therefore we are the creation of it, therefore it is our creation. You think that something like that cares if 50 million people die at one instance? You know how many planets exist in the universe? You know how vast the breadth of the universe is, and it's still expanding. We get caught down in our own torrential problems and our own earthly bullshit and don't see the forest for the trees, what we really have. Everybody who is where they at dreams about being in a higher level of where they at. But one thing, I was watching Cat Williams the other night, and it was true, and he said everybody trying to get something better and feel like they could upgrade and do this and that. He said, look, you never going to get that if you ain't happy with what you got right now. He said, if your raggedy car raggedy, then quit calling the damn car raggedy. Be happy and clean up your raggedy car and be at least happy that your raggedy car can take you from A to B, where you ain't got to get on a raggedy bus with raggedy people smelling raggedy conversations and everything else. And he right. He right. This whole illusion, this whole illusionary function of the BBD, the bigger, better deal, the perpetual upgrade and all that shit is don't exist when you live in a world where they just made a report that over 90%, they put a report now that 90% of black women have at least herpes simplex 1. You understand? 90%, you know what that means? That means out of 10 people, 9 of them people got some sort of herpes simplex. That's what they putting on black women now. Then they saying at least 85% of men are carrying the herpes simplex, but it's closer to like 90 with AIDS. And then you got what they call the givers. These are people now who are perpetually going out there now to infect people. You understand? People who know that they sick, everything else or whatever, but they want to go and have as many sex as possible to spread the misery. That's not a psychological, that's not something that is when the person who has that sickness was a child, they wasn't thinking about doing that type of shit when they got older. What happened to that person from the baby to that point of the infection or whatever to get them to that point to then break down so mentally that they want to now share that plague with everybody else? What would drive somebody to do that? Why is everybody so bugging out and don't know where cancer comes from when all you got to do is look at the first FDA reports on fluoride and what the doctor said? If y'all introduce this, you're going to create generational epidemics of people with cancer. And what did they do? They added fluoride to the water. They put it in the toothpaste, right, to make your teeth white. So now everybody popping up with cancer. We don't know why. Oh, where does cancer coming from? Oh, where's this cluster? When they created, they just passed a law against Whole Foods to make them stop growing vegetables in waste sludge. These niggas was growing the vegetables that they were selling people in sewage sludge for the mulch, and then washing the produce off and then putting it on the shelf. FDA cool with that though. Like, they got people right now, you know what I'm saying, who are trying to advocate to get all FDA restrictions on lead in food. Who's okay with that? What legislative body, what senator gets this on his desk and say, this will be good for my constituency? Who does that? Somebody that's not in control of their own faculty, somebody who would do anything for money, and that's the God of the United States, money. That's it. If you got money, it's all good. And as much as people want to act like that ain't true, it's true. Everybody want to act like it's about hard work and it's about merit and all of that. Come on, man. Like, we live in the real world here, okay? And the problem also with so-called our people, meaning the declared and undeclared most of North Central South America and the greater globe, is that they refuse to unify around the central idea. They refuse to create a society of which they subsist totally on themselves, by and for themselves. The reason why you still have Chinese people today was because the Chinese the old Chinese government or whatever closed the country down. Same thing with Japanese culture. The reason why you can have a Japanese culture today is because they closed the country to foreigners for over 200 years. And that is what has happened. So, like I said, it's now a perpetual kind of race to the finish to see who's going to get there first and how many people are going to actually survive and get they turn the human race into an episode of Survivor. Like, it's a whole racket. You know what I'm saying? No. You know what I'm saying? It's perpetually out of order is my point. So what we want to start to do is promote things, not that we haven't been doing that, but to be even more sometimes direct in understanding that while speech is something that people do to communicate, and it hasn't totally devolved into a thing where they totally regulate it, we still have time, and there's still enough voices of dissent that can actually show people that there's something else greater than their present position. Because you in a rut or you going through some shit now don't mean that you always going to be in that rut and you always going to be that. How many times in your life has somebody told you that you can't do certain shit, or you're not good enough for certain shit, or you overqualify for shit? These niggas will make up shit. You will have everything, and they will still make something up on you just to block you and delay you from what you're doing. And what does that do? It causes frustration. That frustration then manifests usually with the first person you're around. You know what I'm saying? That's usually the person you're in a relationship with or you cool with or whatever. And now you've carried on this thing into this. Everybody do that, man. I don't know. I haven't met a human yet that ain't do a variation of that. Therefore, we are all in a position where we are not, like Moor told me something very true. You know, a lot of Moors get caught up in the words, stuff like that, and they get into, you know, the ish and the eight and all of that. And we explained before that ish in Old Canaanite or Amharic was, Old Canaanite or Phoenician was Aish, was actually A-Y-S-H, Aish or Aish. So it's actually more Aish. But when you think about it, none of us, as much as we are Moors as individuals, none of us are Moors the way we was Moors when we was really Moors, when there was no need for Ish. We are striving to get there. You dig? We are people becoming. Yet, those of us who have chosen to become what we feel we naturally were are beset on all sides, even in our own families and relationships and shit, by people who may not be as in it as you, and vice versa. There's some people who are able to be in total separate kind of relationships like that, where like she total 85 and then he got conscious, or she's totally conscious and he's totally 85. Like some people can get down like that. And sometimes those relationships will work better. You know what I mean? However, disconnection, what I'm finding, usually manifests out of failure to communicate properly. And communication is usually the realm of thought. That's why writing and things like that was encouraged when we were younger. We used to have like cursive classes and how to write script and stuff like that, where you have to have the dotted lines in the form of the script and you have to outline that, and you do a whole page of that, and then you take that off and then have to copy the whole thing yourself and then get used to how you write, how your handwriting is. But then when you get older as an adult, what usually happens, I mean, some people really stick with their penmanship and all that, but by the time you get older, you just write, you just write whatever, you just write how you write. But you don't necessarily write in the same way that you did when you first learned. Writing down your thoughts and conscribing them out of the mental into a process of literature is like helps in the comprehension. Like when I was writing my book, I was able to, it almost got to a point it seemed like it was writing itself, where I was almost like so deep in the subplots and stuff with it that I sometimes had to block off what I thought the story was going to go and then kind of just let it dictate itself. And essentially that's how we all kind of like live our life. We all kind of winging it, because none of us is really in our original state, because our original state is not human. You didn't start off as a human being. You know what I'm saying? You kind of ended up like that. And then it got to a point where you probably chose to incarnate because that was the only form of expression to be able to get the lessons of third density like this. And that's what we did. So in doing the show all these years, you know, through the radio waves and stuff like that, it's created a bond with people, which is dope, you know. which we want to transcend now and transliterate all of those numbers and people into the subscription for the Super Heru 7.0 show that will be more, like I said, personal and interactive way, because, you know, people can ask questions or whatever. But this way, like I said, it's an evolution, and sometimes when we be doing something for so long and don't see no evolution in it, it's like, what's the use? I saw something on Facebook where somebody posted a question like, well, I think it was a Moor posed a question like, well, what if the light what if when you die, the light that you see at the end of the tunnel that you go to is actually another vagina that you actually coming out of? And that's true. How you know? That's why the elders I know who have gone through certain occultic and talismanic training will tell you, you don't go to the light. If you want to truly evolve and ascend, you got to push through the triple stage darkness. But we have been taught to fear that which is dark. We have been taught to not trust that which is unapparent, that we can't see. We are taught to give up certain things for security. We are taught a lot of the instances that we choose to do as people we supposed to do, or because this happened to us at this time, then this is why I'm like that. If life was really simple like that, it would be dope. But in my opinion, it ain't one event that make somebody what they are. It ain't one horrible event. That one event may define an aspect of that person for a certain time, but one event does not a person make. You know, I know people, or I've known people in my life that were really, really cool when they was cool, you know, and then was really, really whack when they was whack. The part of them that was whack was there when they was really, really cool, though. You did? It didn't affect me in a negative way, but that don't mean that they wasn't like that with somebody else or whatever. So by the time it got to me, it's like, well, damn, how could this person be like that? But this person was like that when they was being cool with me. They just wasn't on it like that then. You dig? So there's this whole panorama of self-hatred that's so just rampant now that most of our people have become totally apathetic to it, which is a good defense mechanism. Indifference is a very good tactic because it allows you to not be personally affected. In detaching and not being personally affected by things, I'm saying there's a strength in that. There's a power in that because it allows you to do great and terrible things. And because we as men, again, raised by women who convinced us that they were the backbone of the family because they were the ones that was there. You know what I'm saying? Still didn't mean I didn't need my father. Still don't take nothing away from that. Still didn't give you the right to not allow the family to manifest in an equal manner. But equality is not something that people really do the knowledge to. Equality means being equal on all points. So if there's 8 points in a flag, equality usually comes out of a build and destroy situation. So in order for conflict to fully be recognized and realized, if one half of build and destroy, if build and destroy is 8, and 2 4s make 8, that means 4 then represents culture. It's culture freedom. So that's really 2 cultures coming in to a cipher and then manifesting a build and destroy situation to bring forth that which can be born or not. That's why Allah's supreme mathematics is all wise and exact, because through that system we realize that there is no number higher than 9. You dig? So in that we manifest a degree of spiritual upliftment due to the fact that we're not so constrained and so confined to other people's judgment of us. And the people's judgment is usually based upon what they would do, what I would do if I was in that position. Or that's not how I would do it, so it's wrong. So the manifestation of that comes in the pull and push of that conflict. Because then the other person, and these roles switch. They happen in husband and wife. They happen in teacher and student. They happen in boyfriend and girlfriend, grandma and grandpa. Anybody that's been in a cipher for more than 30 days starts to give more of the essence to whatever that cipher is. Therefore, the energy that's used to create the cipher is the very cipher itself. And that energy usually comes from one or two people. That cipher that is created is usually a manifestation of some sort of union, agreement, resolution. So when they was giving us, let's say, the 9 times table, right, they didn't say, okay, 9 times 1 is 0, or let's say 9. 9 times 2 is 1. But when you look at it from another perspective, the whole Pythagoras and all of that was really a means for people who were not of the original status to give a definition to that which cannot fully be defined. Perfection in anything cannot be fully realized, because once it is, it's dead. As a painter, you should never tell a painter that you like what he did until it's actually on the wall, because once you do, there's a part of that painter that's going to change something about it, because nothing is ever really done. The only thing that is truly done is death, and nobody has come back yet to let you know how that turns out. And even if they did, they can't come back and tell you how it's going to turn for you. So we are creating reality second by second, moment by moment. And we're using things that happened to us in the past and what we want to see happen for us in the future to manifest in the present for us now. But those things are not real. The construct of what we have done or who we are in the past is the very thing that when it actually comes in the present causes more confusion. That's what I learned today. So in manifesting that, the past, which is, again, what we have constructed it to be based upon the choices that we make to be in the present now, is that which really perpetually cannot be changed. It cannot be altered. You cannot go into a time machine and go back into the past the way they tell us. The only way that would be possible is for them to use such a high level of tachyon radiation that they would have to slingshot you around the sun 10 times the speed of light for you to refract at such a high speed that you actually start going backwards. And even if you did, so I know about the Project Pegasus stuff and all of that stuff they got, allegedly the jump rooms they got to take people to Mars and all that crap. Like all that could be true. However, in the reality in the world that we live in, that is still technically fiction. And the reason why it has to stay fiction is because if they were to introduce that into mainstream reality, then that means the whole stagnant aspect of the reality would have to go through a cosmic jump, a quantum leap, and they can't afford that. And when I say they, I'm talking about the devils within us and the devils outside of us, the external ones, which are the disagreeable spirits that don't want us to move forward, that is sometimes manifest within us. A lot of times we when it says we are all born in sin, we all born under the light of the moon. Therefore, there are things within us that are very dark and secret. When you have that dream about the monster that's trying to run and kill you and all that, that's you. That ain't no monster. That's you. That's the part of you or I that we're not dealing with. So what happens, again, in the reality is that we put everything on the monster. And the monster then becomes the aspect of us that we deny when it's brought up in our face. But monsters traditionally are not evil. Godzilla's not evil, like if it was a real monster. Frankenstein was not evil. It was made that way. I don't think that everybody is just born bad. I think everybody has the potential for good and bad equally. And they just may choose more choices that wind up bad than good. But they didn't start out that way. No baby I ever heard of ever came out the womb on some cursing, drinking, smoking, you know what I'm saying, trying to stab the doctor. I ain't never heard of nothing like that. I ain't never heard no baby come out on some straight evil shit other than the Omen, Damien. You know what I'm saying? And that's somebody that was made like that. We make ourselves into these things. We turn ourselves into these things by not accepting a part of ourselves that we maybe can't change. But due to the fact that, well, I can only speak as a so-called black male growing up in America, I was never spoken to in a manner by women that could leave an impression on me in a manner that dignified my intelligence. So I almost had to outdo. It went from rebelling against education to then going into such a aspect of education that it basically shaped what became the rest of my life. Due to people who would try to deject as my intellect, right, by preying on the emotional aspect of me. So as a man, what do? You internalize, you repress, you go within. But that's not good either, because that's the opposite of how we were made. We were made to be open emotionally by women who felt that our fathers weren't open emotionally. So I'm a damn sure make sure this nigga comes out like that. But that might not have been the best recourse for all of us. You dig? Because what that did was create a situation where we couldn't make a definite decision. That's why our generation was the more than one baby mama generation. Not saying niggas wasn't doing that for time immemorial, but in our generation, it seemed like it was that much exacerbated. It went from the latchkey kids to the deadbeat dads, to the teen mothers, to the deadbeat dads, you know what I'm saying, to the welfare mothers. You see what I'm saying? And then to the patchwork family where everybody, so ACS and all these other things come in, break up the family, or people break up their own families or whatever, and then choose to then set up a franchise family over here, but then don't tell this family about it, and then you wind up meeting your sister or your brother on Facebook or some shit like that. That's the reality that they've created for the so-called black family. That's the reality that Dr. King wanted to help bring into society. Whether you want to like it or not, that's what he did, because he fought for integration. And integration, the very definition is to become a part of the so-called greater whole. And that greater whole at that time was so-called white America. The test scores for black children up until integration in some schools was off the Richter. After, you already know. They always got money to build a jail, but they don't have enough money to run a school. Then they create a bunch of psychosexual, deviant teachers to then assault the school system, right? To now have sex with your children and all this other type of shit. where when we was coming up, things like that seemed to be rarities. It actually seemed like the news was the news, but the news is not the news. The news is tabloid journalism now. They went from yellow journalism to straight tabloid journalism. The news people watch YouTube to see what's coming, will see what they should report on now. So how is it really relevant? How is this information going to help me in my life? It's not. So if they doing it, why can't I go on YouTube and have my own channel and build on the news how we know it's really going down? Why not? As long as the internet is what it is, until they flip it or whatever, this is the best vehicle or the only vehicle for the free-minded now. And they're trying to clamp down on that. Anybody pushing the boundaries of society, anybody that's striving to be who and what they know God created them to be, they don't want you to do that. And so situation happens where the frustration of that winds up taking tolls on relationships, and before you know it, you just caught up. You just in it. Then what? Then again, it's the choices that you made that got you in the position. So there's a lot of people, again, road to hell for very good intentions. They say, well, I can download this from this website and put this on this joint and make this and pay attention to it and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you could do that. But what has the success rate been for that, and what happens when you are called to bear on what that stuff says? Are you ready to deal with that? As much as people think that I want to be out here saving everybody, I've never made myself perceived as that. I would love everybody to get it, but I've been the only one telling people this shit ain't for everybody, man. I'm the one talking to people, and after the assessment, unfortunately, have to give them the bad news, like you may need another 7 months to a year to get your situation straight before I can even help you with whatever you're dealing with. Just due to the fact that only they know from once their situation is manifested. Therefore, there may be things in its human nature to protect itself. Even a fly got an ego. A fly ain't going to let you swat it. That's a form of self-defense. The littlest among us have an ego. Then the idea of the ego manifesting and making people believe that that's it, that it's them, is definitely possible. And what that does is it becomes bruised. The ego only gets bruised usually when it's something truthful said. You know what I'm saying? So the thing with the truth is it's so truthful and direct that there is no buffer for it. There is no boom. So it'll come out, and then you'll be doing the knowledge, and then you'll be trying to catch up to the fact that it came out. But you almost in such shock that it manifested like that you trying to keep up with your original point. You can't do that now because whatever was injected into it has now changed the direction of the argument or the confrontation or the communication. And thus, people, we just stop talking because it gets exhausting. It gets too much. I understand. However, those who are the most knowledgeable are usually those the most responsible. And none of us are exempt from that. So if I know that somebody is not intellectually as proud, as proficient as I am, it is not my job or should not be my position to try to use my intellect to guide them in a wrong way or try to somehow mentally control them in a manner just to suit my needs, but they don't get nothing. That's wrong. Just like it's wrong to try to use somebody's insecurities as a means to control them. That's wrong. But these things we refer to as insecurities and control mechanisms and stuff, all of these things are just things that were put on us None of this stuff is really us. And if we could yank off some of the bullshit, we could really get to who and what we really are. And due to the fact that, again, most of us people, whatever, they don't know. People don't know who they are. So within that, it's become almost a farce to think that we could move at a pace where we're all going to, come up at the same time. That's not really, I don't really see that happening anymore. I don't think I ever really did, but I know that there was a part of all of us that have this vision of our people really being free. To really be free. To really be free, they say, is never have to say you sorry, or never have to apologize. But to get to that level, you gotta get past all of the lower self, and the lower self is always there because it's part of you. To say a person should be one, to say a person is going to be one thing or one thing only is defeatist to what they themselves becoming. To say that, that's nihilistic. It's actually a form of future sadism because you're projecting a future for this person, and if this person is indelibly connected to you, and it's almost like emotionally there's a part of them that will believe that. And then the obsession comes not making that happen. And then we know what happens with that. You wind up making it happen by not wanting to make it happen because it was put out there that this is the only thing that was going to happen. But that's a construct. That's a potential future. But the future changed with every choice. So you can't let nobody put you in that. You can't put nobody in that. Regardless to whether the devil is grafted or made or how whatever, those people got their own karmic reality to deal with in their own self, in their own species mind pattern. That has nothing to do with mine unless I interface with them to such a degree that there's something that I feel that I need from them. The only thing I need from them is for them to leave me alone and let me do what I need to do and not try to get me caught up in any of this bullshit. They're not my problem. My problem is dealing with my lower self and dealing with that which is most like me, which is my people who want to be free, but they don't really want freedom. You know what I'm saying? Because freedom is based, you can't have freedom without culture. You cannot be free without your own culture. You can't. And if you adopt in somebody else's culture, being somebody else, that's not you. That's not your people. I'll let the white man tell you. This is from Lord Macaulay's address to the British Parliament on the 2nd of February, 1835. He said, I have traveled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is their spiritual and cultural heritage, and therefore I propose that we replace their old and ancient education system, her culture. For if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. So don't hate on me when I'm wearing my headdress outside and you may look or somebody may look and be like, oh, look at this nigga on some Halloween shit. Like, I care less what anybody think about how I manifest my culture, because manifesting my culture is what got me here. And I shudder to think, under Allah's grace, what would have happened to me if I didn't get knowledge of myself, based upon the level and things that I had to deal with, like we all had to deal with coming up in the hood and broken families and shit like that. There's a certain degree of freedom that comes. There's a high degree of freedom that comes in knowing yourself and manifesting your culture in its truest light. Because we're not like everybody else. How about that? Some of us are better than other people. How about that? And guess what? That's equality. Immortality is for those who are fit for it. And those of us who are fit for it are those of us who are willing to go through the bullshit to get to the other end. And there are not a lot of us left that's willing to do that. And we should not fool ourselves into thinking that that's going to happen in the present capacity of what we see our people in. It's not. They are making chairs where they're sitting on black women. They love this new 12 years as a slave chick who's now in a relationship with Jared Leto, rampant bisexual, homosexual, rampant, from the children of God, who was made into what they call a holy prostitute, a sacred prostitute, by a guy named David Borg. Research the children of God out in California. That's where all these people come from. Jared Leto, River Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix, Rose McGowan. All of these people are herded and put through that ritualistic programming. And the benefit from it is that you get money. So great, you're with him. So in the new movie with Matthew McConaughey, he's playing a HIV/AIDS victim who's a transsexual who's dying of the disease and a methadone addict. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's just acting, right? But remember, there's a such thing as method, right? Where you actually do certain shit. Like Matthew McConaughey actually starved himself. You understand? That's taking it to another level. That's now you becoming possessed by the character you want to portray. That's not acting. That's self-possession, which is what Lord Macaulay basically said to British Parliament. And subsequently after that, they used that to destroy what at that time was what people call Hindustan, which became India, and split it up into India and Pakistan. So the traditional Islamic Moors or whatever, they chose to go further down and then make their own state, the Pakistanis, and then the Indians traditionally was messing with the tampered with Hindu stuff given to them by the British. So again, man, this is about self-preservation in the end. And none of us got to where we are fully by ourselves. Not without the grace of Allah. Whether you believe in that or not. If you call him Jesus, if you go whatever you call him, I don't give a fuck, man. I don't care. I'm to a point where I'm almost emotionally exhausted with striving to be what I know I should be in instances where I'm not. It's like when they say when you sleep on the floor you can't fall out the bed. It's pretty much it's like that, man. It's like Moors are an ancient nobility. That's a fact. Nobody could take that from me. You understand? No judge, nobody could ever come and tell me that my forefathers did not exist. But ain't no judge or no white man coming telling me that. The people that's telling me that is the people that look like me. So who's the real white man? Who's the real problem? Civil rights came out in 1955, the same year that our status allegedly went classified. When Morocco was under the jurisdiction of France between 1912 and 1955, they could not fly the red flag, and at the time the red flag didn't have no green star in it. The only place on the planet that flag was manifested out of at that time when they couldn't do it was the Moors over here. The Moorish Science Temple of America, out of the Moorish Holy Temple Science of the world, out of the Canaanite Temple, out of the Ahmadiyya movement, out of the Mahdist movement. All of these things gave way to where we are now. And if the prophet could give respect to all the other prophets, why people can't give respect to him? As much as niggas want to say, oh, he ain't have it all, he did this, he did that, he plagiarized, he did it. Oh, yeah, well, guess what? I ain't talking about any of them other niggas. I'm talking about him. You don't hear about them other niggas. You got to dig for that. Not him. Like I said, they gotta wax. These British people venerate your prophet so much they gotta wax statue of him in Britain. Fez out and everything. Where they say people come and leave shit in front of. Where they say that people actually white people they be leaving like arms and shit. But they be having to move it. So how all these other people in the world know who this man was, but you don't? How you going to tell me that there's something more in the world that I should be focusing on other than love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality? What other system or what other modality has that as the basis? What else is better than that? And giving veneration to God and giving manifestation of God within. The God within. What other system is doing that? In which I can show and prove my culture, my nationality, my God, my cipher, and any other culture I come in contact with, and still maintain my own and still support them in that. What other nationality or anything else system is going to give me that? I can't do that with RBG. I gotta hate white people to be an RBG. I can't do it in Nuwapian because that means York is my God, right? Or worse. I'm caught up in the wrong understanding of York, right? I can't do it in the Hebrew Israelites because they believe in Jesus, right? Right? What else is left? Sunni Islam? Okay, so then that means I'm all on the burqa, the sunnah, the 5 times a day. My woman is behind me. She don't have no voice, right? What else? Southern Baptist? Oh, that means, what? God forbid something go down, quieter, you know how they do in the Christian churches nowadays. So what else is there? If I want to live upright and be moral and be on the level of what these people know we have the potential of us to be, what else is going to give me that in this route, in this world, in this life? Other than Allah. And when I say that, I'm talking about Allah. I'm talking about what else is giving me the esteem for me to see that I really am a manifestation of God on earth as it is in heaven. What else has manifested other than the nation of God's in earth? And even with that, you had to get the plus lessons to get to understanding who the prophet was in that. So I got 8. The universal flag got 8 points on it. The prophet was born on the 8. The prophet brought people a nationality, a name structure, numerical system, and all of that. The Father Allah did the same thing. Gave them a national headdress and all of that. But the guards had to do the nod to the NOI lessons. You see? And in that, those NOI lessons coming from Father and Elijah, all that came out of the Moorish Science Temple. Can't nobody tell me it didn't. Now, when I'm seeing FBI reports of this dude, Fard, and this dude, Elijah, traveling up and down, telling people they were Grand Sheiks of the Moorish Science Temple, and then from that created the Islam Temple, then created the Islam Temple in North America, turned it into the Nation of Islam. After he got ran out of Detroit, I was told that he came from the East. I was told that he was the son of one of the 12 or 24 scientists. But all I'm seeing is birth certificates and shit of him being born over here. How come as much rhetoric and all of that they talk about the Nation of Islam and all that, how come they ain't never killed nobody but no black people? It's not right. By the time that Dr. King was on his way out, he said, brothers and sisters, I really kind of feel bad because I think I've been trying to get us to integrate into a burning house. And I know we got some sick white brothers out there, but we still got to do what we got to do. We have to start mobilizing for us. That's what he started talking about at the end, and that's what nobody want to talk about. But he was a victim of his shortcomings and his aspirations to power. Did anybody know? Did anybody even research or know that Martin Luther King's family took the United States to court and won under the position that the United States government was complicit and worked to kill him? Did anybody know that? But then again, don't believe me. Research it yourself. People still don't believe that his real name wasn't Michael. You know what I'm saying? But again, people believe and see what they want to see. Once they make their mind up about something, that's it. There ain't much you can do to really change that. So instead of trying to change somebody else's mind, work on changing your own mind. So like I said, we're going to gear up, inshallah, next Moon Day. We're going to put out the thing for Super Heru Radio 7.0. It's going to come on our page under Aseer Cordoba. You go to that, subscribe to Super Heru Radio 7.0, and we're going to have more of a visual. Awesome. Thus far, let me write that. We want to get to a point, like I said, where, you know, we have a real good rapport with the people, so that way we can start bringing more of the direct contact of some of the stuff that we've been working on behind the scenes, because, you know, we're not the type to just flood everybody, but I'm really starting to see that that's maybe what got to happen, because closed mouth don't get fed, and there's a difference between being reliable and being avaricious. So being that we've manifested and shown a degree of reliability to the people, we want the people to show the same to us by carrying this over to our YouTube channel. Like I said, it's going to be Super Heru Radio 7.0. I believe we're going to post the first joint this week. Just look out for it this week. We're going to drop it. It's going to be dope. And again, anybody wants to holler at us about some of the stuff we got out here, okay. If anybody wants to holler at us about More Science Temple of America 2A out here, please hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. As well as if you want to build or need consultation on myriad of different things, but specifically birthright, nationality, inheritance, book signings, workshops, lectures, whatever, hit me up. Life coaching, whatever, hit me up, and we'll definitely build on that and see, you know, what, if anything, we can do to help. So please check out www.aseerthetears.com. Also check out www.darkskull418.com to check out the world's most dangerous comic book novel. Thank you for everybody who has made the Dark Skull 418 a constant seller. This is like I said, we're almost to the end of our fourth printing. We're almost reached our limit on that, so we're going to re-up on that. Thank you guys for making it, all the positive feedback on it. And again, you can check out www.cookingmorewithless.com and www.sagaassad.com. like I said, this is the time for us to be able to unify around a central idea. And once there's nothing stronger or more infectious than an idea that happens to be true. And it just so happens to be true that you have a distinct identity that goes off this world, on this world, and beyond it. And we cannot allow others to define our position and where and how we're supposed to be. And the more you feel constricted, the more you need to speak up, because that's the only way things can actually get better. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in the Creator. Have faith in your relationships. Have faith in your children. Allah bless us, protect us, keep us safe and strong. Amen.